I'll call to order the Finance Committee for Tuesday, November 13th. Roll call. Alder, we'll just say you that you're here.
Alder LaFave here.
Alder Corpus Dax present.
Alder Dorf, present.
Alder Galvin present.
All present and accounted for. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alder Corpus Dax, second by Alder LaFave to approve the agenda. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the minutes from the October 30th, 2018 Joint Finance Personnel Committee meeting.
I'll move to
Second.
approve.
Okay, move to approve by Alder LaFave, second by Alder Corpus Dex. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any motion carries. Regular business. Report by the purchasing manager of the third quarter 2018 purchases between $10,000 and $25,000. Did we change that? Did we change that? To above?
Yes, we did change it. We went from 10 to 25,000, but there was a request by an alderperson to be able to report out anything that did come to the committee and more over at just as a report level. So this is our purchasing manager giving his report. So if you have any questions for him, otherwise it's really informational items that didn't come to a committee because of that change. And then I think at some point, you can decide if you want to continue to see these reports or you decide that they're not necessary, then you can let us know and we can change and no longer continue to report on a quarterly basis.
Okay, well, we'll discuss that after we get this report. We'll discuss whether this is really necessary or not. But go ahead, would you like to report,
Oh.
Mr. Jensen? We're already on it. We
The
are that
report
fast.
should be
In-
part of the agenda.
It is part of the agenda.
So
It's in a PDF form.
we broke it out because technically the Finance Committee made a decision for the other committees,
Right.
INS and
Right.
Parks. So we just broke it up by committee. So there were 4 items for finance between that 10,000 and 25.
So
and
should I
so
just
on.
ask if there's questions? Or are there any questions from the alders on this report?
I don't have any questions about these purchases.
I don't. Is there anything special you want to say about them?
Oh, no, this is just informational.
All right.
Now, we capture this information. It was easy to build a report, but you can decide if you want to, continue with that information.
Okay.
And this was just this is a quarterly report,
Right
correct?
now, yeah, we
Okay.
requested and agreed that we would provide it quarterly.
And I almost hate to have you spend your time doing that. If an alder's interested in this, maybe a yearly report. I personally don't feel like I need a report on this because we didn't get a report when it was up to 10,000, and we just raised it because that is, where it is nowadays. I mean, things are
Right,
higher in
right.
price. So I personally don't need a report, but committee, how do you feel about this? Committee, Alder Galvin?
I guess I don't mind him putting this out, but I don't think we need to, unless we have an issue or another alder has an issue with it, I don't think we need to discuss it here other than receive and place on file.
How about once a year, so that we
Sure.
don't have to do it quarterly? What do you guys think? Or do you like to have it?
Well, not maybe quarterly, maybe 6 months. It's good in a way to kind of look at, sometimes something might jump out that you might say, well, what is really this for? Is it really, necessary or whatever? It's always good for us, I think, to know what they're spending the money on.
Right, but
Even
by the
though
time we
had
see it,
said-
it's already done, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
yes,
It's
yes.
report.
There's nothing we
It's-
can
oh, so it's
pull and
already-
stop.
Yeah,
This is a
yeah.
report.
So
We
then
gave
it
them
doesn't
that
really-
authority
Right.
and power to do that.
And we're still abiding by our purchasing policy, which
Right.
is to go out for quotes, award to the low bidder unless there are reasons that suggest something else. But I can tell you that it is saving us a significant amount of time of preparing,
Good,
sure.
for the
Right.
committee meetings and attending the meetings, et cetera. Yeah. So
Okay.
I can go ahead and do the fourth quarter report.
No, that's,
And-
I'll make a motion that we receive and place on file, item 1, report by the purchasing manager, third quarter 2018 purchases.
And then we'll deal with the next.
Yes.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, any more discussion on receive and place on file this report? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so, you said you had another motion?
Can we make a motion regarding this? Any future reports, like just doing away with them? Can we do that now without having an agenda item? I'll make a motion that we discontinue with the quarterly purchase reports between 10 and 25,000.
Okay, is there a second?
I guess I'll second
Okay. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you so much for this report. I appreciate
bet.
the time that you put into that. All right, number 2, consideration with possible action to accept a grant from the State of Wisconsin Emergency Management Agency for $62,034 and approval to purchase Area Ray Pro Rapid Deployment Kit and Dose Ray Pros based on the State of Wisconsin agreement to reimburse. And this might be the fire chief.
Correct, I'm gonna turn it over to the fire chief. There he is.
And are there any questions? I mean, I certainly am happy to accept money from the state. It's great.
I think the only contingency that I had put on, and I put it toward the end of that sentence, is just that I think the chief thought, sometime this week we would get a signed agreement from the state that they will reimburse us.
Okay,
So I just want to make sure we have that before we move forward with the purchase.
okay,
Yes.
okay, that
And I
makes
know
sense.
the chief also, it was a very last minute item, so that is why it got amended. We
Okay.
put the agenda together, it got published on Friday at 9 a.m. and 10 o'clock, I think is when I got the phone call from the chief. And because of the timing, not having another meeting, and we
Yeah.
needed to get on the December 5th council meeting. So
Good.
That is for the purpose of why we had an amended item.
The backstory to that is we got the call from Wisconsin Emergency Management Friday morning, a statewide call, all the hazmat teams. They told us this information, and basically, they said that January 1, 15% tariff on the equipment, which was gonna add, do the math, $9,000 or something like that to our purchase price, which the state does not have any funding for, so we have to order it before December 31st. We only have one council meeting in December, so that's why I called Director Alan Bacher immediately and said, can I get this on the agenda, and here are the reasons why.
Okay,
And the state is guaranteeing payment or reimbursement?
That's correct. The money was allocated in the current fiscal budget. The problem is that the state will not, Wisconsin Emergency Management, the mechanism is they will not buy the equipment outright because it then becomes state property. That becomes a problem for them internally.
Okay.
So we have to purchase it, and then we send them the receipts, and they reimburse the city through the electronic format.
I'll make a motion to,
no, I think we have to, possible action, we have to accept it, right? Motion, move to accept the grant?
Correct.
Correct.
all right, I'll
Correct.
make a motion to accept the grant.
I'll second that.
And do you need us to add to the motion and approve the purchase of?
I would say yes, in this case, because it is a $62,000 item.
Okay,
We do have another funding source which it's coming from, but I think as long as it's all one action, I think if you could prove as requested.
throw that in there, start
All right.
over again.
All right, so I make a motion to approve the purchase
And accept.
and accept the grant for reimbursement. from
Okay,
the state.
second.
Diana, you want to have a
Second.
contingency on that?
Corpus Dax.
On the contingency that the state reimburses the city of Green Bay for the purchase.
Yeah, the commitment letter is forthcoming. They just said it would be here sometime early this week.
Okay.
We didn't get it before this meeting, so as soon as we will not order the equipment until we have the letter of commitment, which I'll provide to
Okay.
finance.
All right.
All right.
Second.
So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I'd like to acknowledge that Alder Stoyer and Alder Johnson are here with us today. Thank you. Update from the staff on requested amendments to the Claims Administration Procedure Ordinance. So, this is kind of a confusing, maybe, way it's worded, but that is that emergency fund that we've been
Okay.
discussing for catastrophes. That's what we're going to be hearing from Joanne about, and possibly Kristen was here. There she is. Okay.
So on this item, staff has made the requested changes and revisions that were discussed by the committee at the previous meeting. However, additional review and research is necessary. It's still needed before the draft can be brought forth to the committee and to council for review and approval. In the meantime, staff recommendation is for the committee to identify a funding source for the relief fund, which will be a necessary element before that ordinance can move forward.
So we would need to identify a funding source. We'd have to probably identify an amount of money to put in.
Correct.
In this
And then,
funding
and a
source.
funding source, correct.
Do we have any ideas, committee or other alders out in the public, where we would get some money for this catastrophic fund?
I would ask that.
Alder Johnson?
Maybe a question for Director
You want to
Ellenbecker.
come up here? We'd love to
Yeah.
get you on camera, et cetera.
Well, that's one of us that thinks so. Maybe a question for Diana. Is the city self-insured when it comes to things like if we get into a car accident?
We are not self-insured on,
Or is there a threshold, right, where we pay versus when we bring that claim to the insurance company?
Do you want me to answer?
go ahead, please.
So, we have a self-insured retention,
Mhm.
which operates like a deductible for each claim of, I believe, 200,000.
225.
225.
It's changed to 225.
It used to be 250, and I know that number jumped around a little bit. Every claim that gets brought forth or gets filed, we put our insurer on notice.
Mhm.
And then once we cross that 225 mark, that's when the insurance level kicks in.
225 per incident
Right.
or aggregate?
Per incident. There is an aggregate, but I'm not sure what that number is.
I apologize on that.
And do we have a budget allocation for,
I believe
that?
so. I believe we have a budget allocation for the SIR.
Correct. Our budget does allow to pay the premiums and expected claims out of a normal year of claims, and the premiums and any other fees that are, we expect in the 19. That is, was in our budget book, and that we did approve it, but we did not set any additional money aside. Everything that's in the 2019 budget is what we would expect in 19.
sure. And I apologize, I meant to call you today, I wanted to get answers for these, so I didn't put you on the spot.
Okay,
So as
yep.
best as you know, do you know how much we have allocated in that fund, and how much maybe variation or fluctuation we might see from year to year?
We actually did ask for a larger amount this year based on increased claims. And second, over the last couple of years, our claims have been higher than what we budgeted for, so currently we have a negative fund balance in the fund that we pay these invoices out of. So again, the amount went up that we requested this year, and that's just based on his history. The last couple of years, our claims in general have been higher.
Okay, so would it be possible, and I'm not saying this is the right thing to do, but would it be possible if we had a limit, let's say on this fund, that was below that 225 per incident, would it be possible that that fund could be used to support this program?
Yes, I would think we would have to wait another year or two to make sure that we get in a positive fund balance.
Do you know what we're currently negative? And how much we allocate to that annually? And again, if you don't have the answer, I completely
apologize.
understand. I'm taking you off guard here.
General liability. For the 2019 budget, we put $788,000 into that fund. We expect another page.
So we budgeted more into that fund because the intent was that we would have some left over to replace the negative fund balance?
No, the last 2 years, our claims have increased. And so this is a projection from between our HR department and also from our CIVMIC,
Mhm.
our carrier. They give us a projection on what they feel, what our premiums are going to be, and also what they expect our claims are going to be. So for 2019, we did budget what the insurance company recommended. If we run favorable, then that will just help bring the fund balance up. There was no additional
Sure.
dollars put in there to try to either set a relief fund up or really to get us out of the negative fund balance. In prior years, in some cases, we didn't budget as much as our insurance company recommended, and that's partially how we got into a negative fund balance, because they recommended something, we budgeted less, and then the claims came in just as the insurance company may have recommended. So
So it's a fund balance, so I assume to fund that, we've got to go to the general fund to
correct.
basically provide a loan, if you will, I mean, to that sub-account, or?
Yeah, at this point, it is something we levy for. We take, what our expenses are, backed off any other revenue sources in which that come into that account, and then we levy the difference. So if you were to try to spend more money out of, then it's a negative fund balance, and really the general fund actually supports a negative fund balance throughout the year.
Okay. So again, and I think this is up to the committee to debate, but it sounds like that could be an option. I mean, legally speaking, would that, Joanna, would that be something that if they did create this fund?
I don't think there's any parameters as far as where the money goes. The ordinance is going to be structured in a way so that whatever funds are being used, even though they're public funds, to make sure they're not being used for a private purpose, we have to identify a public purpose for the funds. It's just a matter of identifying where that money is going to
Sure.
come.
And I appreciate from a fiscal perspective, right, you have to give us your advice as a staff. I guess all I'm trying to do is identify a possible source, and while that might not be the desired path, if this isn't something we budgeted for, this could be an option without impacting the existing budget, just knowing that if we end up with the level of claim volume that we budgeted for, then you gotta figure something out.
Well, that's,
So then we go negative.
and I guess that's what I wonder, going into 2019, we have no money, say we pass this ordinance this year,
Mhm.
or early next year, we have no money budgeted for that. And so you're proposing potentially taking it out of that 2019 $788,000.
Not proposing, I'm saying that's an option that
It's
the
an
committee
option.
has.
Well, I mean, that's an
Yeah.
idea you'd like to consider. And then I guess I would ask Diane, in the future, saying 2020, could we ask CIVMIC and our loss prevention people to take a look at what we consider could be potential claims that this new ordinance would cover, and have those monies combined then, and start levying the money to cover both those contingencies?
Right, I think we absolutely could go to our insurance company and ask for a recommendation, once we kind of decide which way the ordinance is, you're leaning toward on the ordinance.
Right, and this is kind of the difficult thing, because now we've passed the budget for next year, and we haven't been able to anticipate exactly how this ordinance is gonna look, and so we haven't been able to anticipate what the possible claims could be, and then budget for it, so.
I know the intent was to have a very narrow focus in this
Right.
ordinance, very narrow. Catastrophic, could not have any, there's no other way that it, could be covered, only up to a certain amount of money,
Right.
which it would certainly no more than 50,000, possibly less than. And it probably, it didn't look like it would happen very often. I mean, in my mind, I was thinking of $100,000 the first year, and seeing if that would be enough to cover things. But I don't know, we were gonna get some guidance, I'm not sure if we are tonight, or maybe is it next time, from Director Cheryl Rainier-Wig to talk to our.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
step back and let you guys
Thank you.
debate. I just at least
No,
wanted
that
to
was
ask a few
a very
questions to
good
understand
question.
if that was an option. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
My understanding was that ACA Johnson was working with and conferring with Director Cheryl Rainier-Wig as far as the structure of the ordinance and the relief fund.
Yeah, the last I
You
told
are?
you, yeah, the
Okay.
last I told you was that she thought the number $50,000 was high to get a home back to basically be livable. She was gonna consult with some people in her department to see what a realistic number would be, but I haven't heard back on that yet.
So we have to have it by the next time,
Mhm.
maybe, that we need. Another question I have is a possible funding sources. I noticed that we still have 87 or 85,000 in contingency. Is that a possible source for some of it?
It's a potential, I think there are two other items that have already been approved to come off that 85,000, so I was prepared to talk about that later. We have, at the last council, we approved additional money, moved over to the PFC for $14,000. And we've also approved the referendum, which is gonna be at least 15,000 up to 20,000 to come out of the contingency. That will leave us somewhere around $55,000.
Okay, so possibly we could look at a funding source of maybe 50,000 from that insurance fund that Alder Johnson referenced, and maybe 50,000 from the contingency, because we're almost at the end of the year. I don't know, we have November, December left, right? Is it the calendar year that we use contingency for? That's those two things are possible funding sources to get us up to maybe 100,000, just to start out with, if the ordinance is passed, because we're identifying a funding source, but for what, we don't know yet, because we don't have the ordinance yet. Committee
Yeah.
Do you think we'll be ready
by,
next council meeting?
oh no,
So
There's
this
no
would be
way we
after the
can.
first
This will
year.
be after the first year, but we can backdate it. I already checked on that. We can have it retroactive to this year, yes.
I would just have to verify, the contingency fund is in our general fund, general 101 fund, and our general liabilities are 703 fund. We do budget for them, we levy for them. However, the way we post it into the public notice, I would just have to verify that we could actually move it from from another fund, from general fund, and move it into a 703. I'm just saying that might be something I would have to look into. I wouldn't want you quite to vote on that yet
Got it.
tonight. I'm not 100% sure we can move it back out of the general fund, but I would definitely verify and get that answer.
And what's a 703 fund?
703 fund is our general liability fund, where all the claims and all the premiums and all the claims
So
are
that's
paid
what
for.
would almost have to come out of the general liability fund. That's what-
Correct, and that is the one that's currently in a negative fund balance. And so the only way, the cleanest way would be to next year or in future years is to levy more dollars into that fund.
That would be the cleanest way, but we've been working on this since, February. So, and I get it, I get it.
Yeah,
So
I
if-
just would have to make sure
yeah.
100% we can move it from a general fund into another fund, because that
Right.
is not how we actually budgeted it.
Okay.
All right. Well, I would make a suggestion that we direct staff.
Well, I think we should discuss before we, did you have something to say, Alder Lefebvre? And Alder
Well, I
Purpose
think
Deck?
what Alder Galvin was gonna say, direct staff to look in, I mean, we have questions yet.
We have questions, so I guess I would direct staff to come up with some suggestions, how to fund it for 2019, and then how to fund it going forward after 2019. So we have a regular source of funding. It looks like for 2019, we're gonna have to ad hoc it from possibly several different sources.
Right.
But after 2019, how are we gonna fund it every year?
Right.
So we can look at it as a steady budget, and then also that, as they continue to work on the ordinance, we set up a program of using staff and CIVNIC to project what they feel the claims might be, so that we can have a pretty definitive budgeting program going forward. Because it looks like CIVNIC and loss prevention have been pretty accurate with our
Other kinds of
the other
claims.
fund that, for claims. So I guess those would be my suggestions going forward. And then we can discuss those sources and the fund amount.
Does that
We need
meet
more
your
answers.
needs? That's not exactly what I thought you were asking us to do, but,
It was more of if the committee wants to refer to staff to identify, I think that's what I'm hearing, that the committee would like staff to identify funding sources.
there's some options we've thrown out.
Right,
I mean, Diane and her crew certainly know
We know.
better than the rest of us.
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just like CIVIC and loss prevention would know better what
Mhm.
claims we might have, and then how much to budget for it or set up for it.
Right.
Just like Cheryl figuring out what she thinks it would cost to put a home back in a livable condition.
Mhm.
Because the whole purpose wasn't to cover everything, couldn't, and not really personal property, but just so you'd be able to live in the home. Did you have a question?
Well,
Alder
just
Steuer?
Thank you, Chair. Is there a limit that we're looking on this at all as far as,
Yes, we're waiting for,
right, waiting for that?
Right.
I'm
For
just,
that.
I'm just trying to,
well, originally the limit was 50,
50
and it could be
per.
less.
It could be less. And I was just gonna ask if anybody in the committee or anybody knows how many of these catastrophes we
Well,
might
that's
have
the other
had
thing we're looking
over
at.
time.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like
Is it
to,
once every
You know,
few
it's hard
years,
to-
several times a year? I mean, it's
Right.
hard to
It's
determine.
hard to
That's why
determine.
staff would be able to, I think, get better,
Right.
get a better read on that for us, to help us
It's
make
not
a
very,
decision.
it's not very often,
no. it's
even
not.
on, yeah. I
All
don't
right.
think, from what we've been told.
Well, I
Right,
guess-
and these are, the uniqueness of this is that these are not typical claims for which, these are claims that the city is denying based on the fact that there is no liability, that the
That's
city
the
was not
first,
involved.
first
Right.
part of it. And the
So-
second part of it is there's no other way for them.
Correct. So, and because these are situations that don't happen very often, for which a discernible pattern can be identified,
Right.
I'm not sure how CIVMIC or our loss prevention folks will be able to best predict how often these things will happen, because there is no pattern
There
or
isn't.
there's
I
no
know.
pattern to
Right.
these types of
And I
events.
know
That's
we've
why
looked-
they are
Right.
catastrophic.
Right.
In their description.
And I don't know if somebody can look at the other communities that it insures to see how often it's been happening in other communities in
I guess that was
Wisconsin.
my point too.
I had one thought that that we'd put an amount in, and at the end of each year, based on the claims that were approved, a percentage based on this amount. This is it. This is our steady amount. This is all we got. So, percentage based on whatever the claims were would get paid out. So maybe they wouldn't be able to get the full amount that we've determined. It should be 50,000. Maybe it's not going to be that much if we have like 100,000 a year and that's all we have.
Well, and that's, you see, and I would question that because, say this year there was one incident,
Yeah.
and we spent 50,000
Yeah.
out of that 100. and
Then we could keep that
maybe we go
money
by
for-
5 years and nothing happens.
Yeah.
Now, do we keep adding to that?
I don't know.
And then, say 5 years down the road, we have an extremely catastrophic incident where we have 5 homes at 50,000, now you're suddenly at 250,000, and if our budget is only 100,000 per year, we say, well, the first 2 are in and the other 3 are
No, it
out.
wouldn't be the first two. It would be everyone would get something, but up to
But then they
a
say,
certain
well, they
amount.
got 50,000
Well,
5
they
years ago.
could say that.
Well,
That's because we had. You're right.
Yeah.
So
get it.
I'm just trying to.
You have to watch how you
Devil's
have it worded.
advocate.
We
Right.
have, you're right, and
Right.
so we have to be careful moving forward that we anticipate, and I know it's not always
And
easy to
we
anticipate,
can't
but I want to try and
Timing is
anticipate.
really important too. I mean, you might have 3 or 4 in January, February, March, and then later on in the year, there's others. I mean, how do you can't,
Well, that's why I would say we'd pay them all out at the end of each year.
Yep.
But that was just an idea. It was just
Right.
throwing
Well,
it out there
it's a
as
work in
another idea
progress.
to keep it within a realistic sum that we could say this is how much we'll budget for.
And
I'm
I do
good.
believe that you should
Thank
build
you.
up, because if you do have nothing in, say, you do 1 year and back a couple, and then you have years where you don't, but all of a sudden you could get a bunch, you should probably build up a little bit in that fund. Because,
It
2
would
and also
work,
costs
yeah.
go up,
Yeah.
and we also know that costs
Is
really
that
go up.
possible,
So that
Diane, to
might be
carry
a
money
thing
over
that-
from year to year to build up a fund?
Yes, if we're carrying, and if it's in our 703 fund, yes.
Is it possible if that fund gets so large, we could take, either quit budgeting it for a while, or take funds from that and transfer it to the general fund?
No, what I think I would recommend is if that fund got larger than you expected, you would just the next year levy less in that.
Yeah, sure. We
Because
could
every year
put
we
a
levy in that
limit on it.
fund. You could just levy, if, let's say we needed $800,000 for that year's expenses, but you decide to only levy 700 because you feel that the balance in reserve has gotten large enough. You could levy a little bit less, which would help overall the whole
Right.
mill rate and the whole levy for that next year.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to put too much in, but you should always add a little bit every year, I think, just to be safe. And nothing is too infrastructure. I think CEMEC would probably look at the infrastructure, the age, and they would probably average that out, for the
Right, I'm
amount
not
that we
sure,
have.
it's almost like an
Yeah.
actuary doing their work, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
They probably
All right.
consider that out.
How helpful was this then?
We have some direction, so we can move
You
on.
do? All right.
Yeah, I think that's the best bet.
Okay. So do you need a
Formal motion?
motion or just,
If you want to refer it back to staff for additional.
that's it?
Yeah.
Yes. Alder Gilman?
All right, I'll make a motion to refer this back to staff to look at funding sources, how much the budget, and what was the other one we were talking about?
Just how much to get a house back?
Oh, yeah.
Right,
yes.
determine how much it would take to get a catastrophic incident
Yeah.
taken care of. And I guess other suggestions on how much to let the fund build up to and things like
It's
that.
very complex, very complex.
I'll second
Okay, second by Alder LaFave. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, now we have the report of the Claims Committee, and would you like us to go into closed session on that?
If the committee has questions on anything.
Oh, if the
then-
committee has questions.
Mhm.
All right.
No, I think they were pretty straightforward.
I didn't have
Yeah.
questions.
I didn't
I didn't either.
don't have any questions. All right,
Receive and place on file.
yes, why don't you?
Motion to receive and place on file the claims.
Second,
Claims.
Alderman, second by Alder Corpus Dax. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Informational, you kind of went over the contingency accounting already with us. And the next Finance Committee will be held on Tuesday, January 8th, 2019 at 4:30 PM.
Correct, and yeah, that's based on really our council meetings. There's another one December 5th, and then there's not another council meeting until January 15th. So having a finance meeting in December we would not make any decisions at council up
Okay.
until January 15th. So we might as well hold the next finance meeting on January 8th.
Okay. All right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion adjourned by Alder LaFave, second by Alder Corpus Dax. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned for a few minutes, and then we'll go to personnel.